So let me move on into the final of our sessions here and talk about Europe's lost treasure and how we can contribute uniquely to it. The lost treasure of Europe is not public debt, is not international credibility. It's people. The people of Europe are the treasure of Europe. And the lost treasure is the character of the people, the character of virtue. We've seen there's an appetite to recover this tradition, but I would like here to say that Christianity is strategically poised to give a unique contribution, because this is also our tradition, as we've seen. I'd like to introduce you to the CRE acronym. And this acronym actually talks about the problem that we have when we present the Christian message. I think there's a threefold problem. We exit our churches, and we come into society, we come into the world, and we say, we have gospel. We have three problems. The first problem is a problem of credibility. People listen to the gospel, and they go, really? Is that credible? Isn't that sort of like an intellectual suicide? To be a Christian, you have to, it was like a small boy one time asked his mother, his mother asked him, what is faith? And he thought a minute, and he said, well, Mommy, faith is believing things that you know aren't true. That's not Christianity. We believe things that are presumably true, although we can't touch and feel and see many of them. We believe what is presumably true, not what isn't true. So many people will wonder this. Is Christianity credible? Does it contradict science? Does it contradict our culture? It's a credibility issue. The second is an issue of relevance. Not so much is it true, but who cares? You go to your classmate or your colleague at work or your neighbor and you say, I'd like to talk to you about Jesus. And then, yeah, whatever. What does this have to do with me? I've got bills to pay, I'm unemployed, I've got, my teenage son is, on drugs, and, what does Jesus have to do with this? In Europe, what does Jesus have to do with anything? So what we're facing, I don't know in your countries, but certainly in Italy, we're facing resurgent nationalisms. Yeah. So where right-wing parties are becoming very important and becoming nationalistic, borders are shutting down, and there's all sorts of things happening. Or we're facing immigration crises, or we're facing injustice in wealth distribution, or political corruption, or ecological emergencies. Now we have teenagers going around the world in squares and thousands coming to rally against plastic bottles. What does Jesus have to do with plastic bottles? What does Jesus have to do with immigration? So is the gospel really relevant? And the third problem we have is when we announce the gospel is the issue of exclusivity. Some may say, Christianity has some good things, that's fair, but no more or less than anybody else. Other people have good things. You've got some good things, that's fine. But everybody else has good things as well. Good for you. But don't push your religion on us as anything special. It's like anyone else. These three problems are found in the Exodus narrative. You remember? Moses comes out of the desert after his 40 years in the desert. He's met God. He's got the rod. He walks back into Egypt. And he storms into Pharaoh's palace. And puts down his rod. And he says, "Let my people go." Now, that was the gospel of that moment. What is the reaction to Moses' proclamation of, "Let my people go"? Pharaoh does not find it credible. Pharaoh says, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice?" Really, Moses? You're not credible. Who's the Lord? The Israelites who were hearing this message do not find it relevant. Say, Moses, really? Is this going to help us make more bricks? Actually, Moses, guess what? It's not helping at all. Now we don't need straw to make bricks anymore. How is your message relevant to the problems of our life? And then there's the magicians. And the magicians, they don't find Moses' message exclusive. They say, oh, Moses, water into blood. We can do that too. Moses, rod to serpent. Look at here, we can do that too. Then they get distracted a moment. Moses' rod, what's up there? Rod's up. That's a detail. And actually, the magicians, they imitate the first three plagues. But then something happens. What then happens in Moses' proclamation that makes the gospel credible, relevant, and exclusive? It is plague number 4. Plague number 4. Anybody remember what plague number 4 is? It is a horrible plague. It's the lice. Yeah, it's the bugs that get in your hair. It's a terrible plague. They come up from the dust, and just Egypt is invaded by lice. And when the lice come around, and then the plagues carry on from there, at the end, what does Pharaoh say? He didn't find the message credible in the beginning. After all the plagues, Pharaoh says, please ask your God to be kind to me. All of a sudden, Moses is credible. What is the message that the plagues do to the Jews? At the end of the 10 plagues, the Jews say, let's go. Yes, this is relevant. Yes, we're actually going to pack our things up. This is going to change our life, Moses. Let's go. And with the magicians, the 4th plague makes the message exclusive. They could do rod to serpent, they could do water to blood, they could do frogs. They can't do lice. When they see the lice, Exodus 8:19, the magicians say, this is the finger of God. This is exclusive. You're doing things we can't do. Our challenge as we bring the gospel message to our generation, to our cultures, to our society, is to present a gospel message that is credible, relevant, and exclusive. And I believe that character and virtue, as they accompany our proclamation of the gospel, and as we embody the power of the gospel in transformed character and virtue, this makes the gospel message credible, relevant, and exclusive. This, I believe, one of the courses I teach at LST is apologetics. Apologetics is the rational defense of the Christian faith. And it's a good thing. But I think the new frontier of apologetics is the transformation of the church to become men and women of character and virtue. Yeah. To become the kind of people, to be the kind of people that the world is going to look at and go, oh, wow, that's credible, that's relevant, that's exclusive. What have you got? So let me just show you, again using the CRE acronym, how character and virtue can help us in our vision for impact of the glory of God in the societies in which we live. So first of all, credibility. As Pharaoh did, society asks us, who is the church that we should take it seriously? Okay, now here's a question. It says, do we practice what we preach? What is virtue? And there are 3 words. Actually, these come from Aristotle again. He said to be credible, you need 3 things. You need ethos, pathos, and logos. And I'm just going to kind of use these as a way to talk about how we can be credible. The first thing is ethos, which means that we need to practice what we preach. We cannot preach love and righteousness and be people who are divisive. And our churches are continually splitting. Yeah. We can't be people who say, we represent the King of Justice, and we're the first ones who are not just. We cannot be the people who talk about constancy and moderation, and our divorce rates are just as high as those in society. We need to practice what we preach. Secondly, we need to have the pathos of understanding the anxieties of our generation. The pathos has to do with that beautiful word in English, which is empathy. We need to demonstrate that we understand the fears and anxieties of our society, and that it is character and virtue that is responding to those. The depressed young adolescent does not only need a new psychotherapist. They need a purpose for life. They need to understand that they are a chair that needs to be sat on. They need someone who will inspire them to be a woman of virtue. To say, you can be the kind of person that you would like to be through the power of the gospel. We understand the fears. A recent inquiry has said that the millennial generation is one of the loneliest generations that has ever come about. Despite you are so connected with your social media, you are one of the loneliest generations. Loneliness peaks are highest among millennials and centennials. Now, what is our message as Christians to this? What is our pathos? It says we understand loneliness, and friendship is one of the virtues. Friendship is not just about sharing likes. It's not just about sharing comments across the social media. That can be a good thing. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's much more. Friendship, Aristotle said, what binds people together in true friendship is the shared passion for virtue. What is the key to a long marriage? Of a friendship in a long marriage? It is that you share a commitment to virtue. A marriage where the husband is just and the wife is unjust, where the wife is patient and the husband is impatient, where the husband is merciful and the wife is cruel, that marriage is not going to work. But where there is a shared passion and a commitment to the virtues, it is the good that binds people together. That is friendship. There's nothing thicker than that. That is what will keep a church together, not a confession of faith. As important as that may be, it will be our charter of character, that we bind ourselves together to be men and women of virtue. That will respond. And the society around us that is looking, that is anxious for purpose and happiness in life, will look to us and will understand and will see, this is different. We would like this. And then the last to be credible is logos. So to actually articulate in words what we are doing. So to find again the words of virtue. To find the words even to create bridges into our culture. I was we were having dinner with some friends, non-Christian friends, colleagues of my wife from school. And somehow my son, my 20-year-old son was also there, and we got into talking about issues of dating and that. They all had grown children as well. And so we were sharing a little bit, and Ruben, he was also sharing a little bit about his dating life and certain parameters that he's set in his own life and his relationship. And we as parents we've trained our children to be controlled and moderate, and to respect the other person, and to be appropriate in sexual relationships and all the rest of that. And our friends are kind of going, "What planet are you guys from?" And one of the ladies, who's also she's Catholic Christian, she started going on, it's because of our faith, it's because of our commitment to our faith, and that's why we have these virtues in our relationships because we're Christians. And the guy at the other end of the table, who's far from being Christian, he was getting really angry because he didn't share at all the faith convictions of anyone who was an atheist. And so I started talking to him. I said, yeah, part of this is coming from our faith convictions, but a large part is coming simply because we believe this is what it means to be a human being. I was speaking his language, not mine. I was using a logos that was creating a bridge into his world to say, we believe that for a young man to be a flourishing young man, he's not, excuse the expression, spreading his seed all over the place. In an uncontrolled, passionate, with no parameters, no respect for the other person. That is not creating a human being that is flourishing, that is meeting its purpose. Self-control, respect, These things have to do with being a human being. And so you see what I was doing there, I was using a logos that was making a contact with someone who didn't share my faith convictions, but also admitting, yes, this is also part of my faith conviction. So, ethos, pathos, and logos will help us make the gospel message credible through the embodiment of character and virtue. What about relevance? What is our vision for impact in society? Would you take another 2 minutes and just turn to the person next to you again and complete this sentence? Because individuals are part of our faith communities, society is better because. So because individuals are part of our faith communities, society is better because. Okay, just take, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, turn to the person next to you, try to answer that question. Go. Okay, I'm going to stop you. I didn't want you to actually solve the question, but just to start thinking about it. Okay? But you see how this kind of question, it shifts our focus. So together with wanting people to come into our communities, to find Jesus and everything that comes with that, we are also thinking, okay, because of our faith community, how is this improving society around us? So just let me give you a couple of examples. Do we envision any sort of contribution to politics? Now, politics is simply the art of living together in a society. Yeah? We often put politics beside some bad words with negative connotations, and many politicians haven't helped us very much to think positively of politics. But I'm not talking here about the odd Christian who will pursue a political career. Although if there are the Daniels in our midst, God bless you. And as a church, we need to pray for the Daniels that will actually venture into a political career. But I'm talking about something different here. For Aristotle, the virtuous life was the key to a healthy political society. The two things went together. If you read the documents of the founding fathers of the Western democracies, people like Tocqueville or others like this, they were very clear. Democracy will only work with a citizenry that is characterized by character and virtue. When you take the power away from the few, the king, the tyrant, whoever, and you give the power to the many, it will only work if the many are people of virtue. If you give the power to the people of vice, what's going to happen to society? The most terrible things are going to happen to society. So if you are calling people to vote, and the people are unjust, selfish, individualistic, uncaring, they don't practice any of the intellectual virtues to be informed, they don't have any idea of compassion, they're not compassionate, and all of the vices are proliferating, and you ask them, oh, would you vote on what it means to be a good society? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the founding fathers of the democracies, they recognized that. They said, it will not work. And they were founded, many of these democracies, with a very strong Christian population that was practicing the Christian virtues. And therefore democracy could work better. But as we lose this, we're going to lose the goodness of democracy. So what can we do as Christian churches? Well, first of all, we can become men and women of character. And when we go to vote, we will vote with character. We will vote with virtue. And we can influence those around us, in our schools, in our workplaces, with a discourse and an example of virtue. We can contribute that very much to society. Are there any teachers in the room? Teachers of primary or secondary school? Okay, okay, there's a few. If you're a teacher in a primary or secondary school, you have a fantastic ministry. You need to have a vision that you're not just teaching mathematics, science, and history. You are shaping young children in their character of virtue. So when you teach mathematics, don't just teach the timetables. Teach your children the discipline of constancy, which which is a beautiful virtue. Teach them the discipline of attention in an age which is so distracted by social media. And we can't think thoughts anymore that are longer than 144 characters on a tweet. Teach your children to read and to be attentive and to think deeply. Those will become good citizens in society. Many schools today in Europe actually have citizen training programs because they realize that we're losing a lot of these things. And we as Christians should understand this better than anybody and contribute. Even in your Sunday schools, when you teach your children, teach them the stories of the Bible. Teach them Joseph, teach them Jacob, teach them Rebecca, but also teach them the character and the virtue that these heroes of the Bible are demonstrating. So in politics, also in competences, I'll just say very little here, but Europe today is very keen on competences for the workforce. They want to train people that are competent in things like team playing, understanding different cultures and contexts, in being proactive, in being project managers. There's all sorts of things that Europe is looking for. And if you're on the job market in Europe, probably your employer is looking for these competences in you. In my book, I argue that competence is not possible without character. Just let me take one of teamwork. Teamwork is actually one of the 30 competences that the European Commission, a huge project was commissioned to study what the 30 most wanted competences would be in the workforce in Europe today. And teamwork is one of them. So all universities in Europe and most secondary schools are working to help students gain the competence of teamwork. Can you learn teamwork off a PowerPoint slide? Can you learn teamwork reading a book on teamwork? No. To be a team player, you need a character of virtue. You need virtues like humility. You need virtues like love. You need virtues like tolerance, justice, respect, dignity. If these are part of your character, you don't need to read the slides on team player. You will be the kind of person who works well in a team. And as Christians, we can contribute uniquely to the relevance, even to the demand of the workforce in Europe, to have a more competent workforce as we pursue the agenda of character and virtue. We cannot, I think Christian discipleship as well. I really like the words you have up here. Could I suggest to your leadership team maybe you have a sixth one that has to do with being men and women of character as part of your discipleship objectives? That would be a fantastic contribution to the church and to society. So let me move to the end now, and the best is at the end, the dessert, as it were, after these 2 days of eating together. The message of exclusivity. Is the Christian message exclusive? Is it? We've seen that the classics and the philosophers, they spoke a lot about character and virtue, and Christians did as well. So is it the same? Do we have anything that we're adding? Is there added value that we bring as Christians to the whole discourse of character and virtue? I would like to share two scripture passages with you as we conclude. The first is in 2 Peter 1, and if you have your Bibles, you want to open to that. I'm going to try and get it up here on the screen. Okay, I managed to do that. So 2 Peter 2, 1, just let me read this to you. From verse 2. Grace to you and peace be multiplied in the knowledge of God and Jesus the Lord, seeing that his divine power, mark the word power, has granted to us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that called us by his own glory and virtue. Glory is the topic of your convention. We're called to glory and virtue. Whereby he granted to us his precious and exceeding great promises, that through these promises you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world by lust, or having escaped, we could say, vice. Yes, for this very cause, adding on your part all diligence, in your faith supply virtue. Or a more contemporary translation has that. Add to your faith virtue. And to your virtue knowledge, to your knowledge self-control, to your self-control patience, to your patience godliness. And in your godliness brotherly kindness, and in your brotherly kindness love. For if these things are yours and abound, they make you to not be idle, nor unfruitful unto the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. For he that lacketh these things is blind, seeing only what is near, having forgotten the cleansing of his old sins. Wherefore, brethren, give the more diligence to make your calling and election sure. Teachers who were very good at speaking, but were very poor at living. They had a lot of knowledge, but they didn't have the wisdom of virtue and character. That's what's happening in 2 Peter. And also against the endless sin that was happening in the Roman Empire when this letter was being written. That even not the great teacher Seneca was able to stop. This is the time of the Emperor Nero, one of the worst and most unvirtuous emperors that there have been in the Roman Empire. Against this background, the author of 2 Peter sets out to instruct us on growing in virtue. The letter centers around the straightforward directive that Christians must make every effort to add virtue to their faith. And the word that the author chooses for virtue is the Greek word arete, which is the word that Plato and Aristotle were using to talk about the same thing. In the text, he shows that a creative, deep, sincere, and sustained commitment to the shaping of character in the Christian life. And the exhortation comes with an ethical list of public and private virtues, and we've read these. They entail being knowledgeable, self-controlled, persevering, godly, affectionate, and loving. And actually, if you read the rest of the letter, you'll find a whole list of vices, of things that we are not to be in our character. Adding virtue to our faith is the most important thing we can do as Christians. There's nothing more important. This is the most important thing. The text says this is what confirms our calling and election. It's not like what we saw yesterday, the Protestants believe that if you have prosperity and wealth, that confirms your calling and election. No. 2 Peter says it is the cultivation of virtue that is going to confirm your calling and election. It keeps us from being ineffective. It keeps us from being unproductive. It keeps us from being carried away from our secure position. Wouldn't that be fantastic? To have a church full of people who are productive, who are effective, and who are not carried away from their secure position. Pastors, what is the key to have that? Cultivate virtue. Add virtue to faith. What is most significant, however, in 2 Peter is that we have a distinct perspective, an exclusive perspective of the gospel as it relates to character and virtue. In Galatians, we see that it is the power of the Spirit that shapes our desires. In Ephesians, we find that the new God-given life of the Spirit gives us the fruit of the Spirit. And you read the fruit of the Spirit, peace, joy, perseverance, they're all virtues. In 2 Peter, we see even more clearly that it is the power of the gospel that is there to shape our character, not just to save our souls. Let me say that again. The power of the gospel that Peter talks about is not just about saving our souls. It is about shaping our character. Peter tells us that we have received divine power in order to live a godly life of virtue. In the gospel, we have everything we need to be good, not just to be saved. This, brothers and sisters, I believe is the less familiar side of the gospel. The gospel is good news, but I'm not sure we cultivate this side of the gospel enough. The good news is not just that we receive a rich welcome into the kingdom, but that we get to add virtue to our faith. The gospel is not just that we get to go to heaven, but that we get to be good people as we partake in the divine nature. Simply put, 2 Peter shows us that the Christian gospel provides the power to fulfill the quest of the classical philosophers. The classical philosophers were looking for virtue. The gospel comes along and says, now here's the power to get it. The classical philosophers wanted to know how to obtain virtue. They looked to philosophy to fulfill their vision. They looked to practices of education to educate the soul. They looked to politics to emulate the proper community for virtue. But although these things were good, their power was limited. What 2 Peter tells us is that the power to add virtue or faith comes from Jesus. This is the difference between the message of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, Seneca, and the gospel. And the second text, and let me just turn to this briefly. I need to flip here. All right. Would you find Romans chapter 6 as we go to our conclusion? Let me just read Romans 6 from verse 17 on. Thanks be to God that whereas you were servants of sin, and we can put the word vice in here, it's a perfectly legitimate synonym, you became obedient from the heart to that form of teaching whereunto you were delivered. And being made free from sin, vice, you became servants of righteousness. And this is the word dikaiosune. This is the word that Plato and Aristotle used to talk about virtue. You have become servants of virtue. I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh, for as you presented your members as servants to uncleanliness and to iniquity, unto iniquity, even so now present your members as servants to righteousness, unto sanctification. For when you were servants of sin, you were free in regard to righteousness. What fruit did you have at the time in the things where you are now ashamed? For the end of these things is death. But now, being made free from sin and become servants to God, you have your fruit in sanctification, and the end, eternal life. The wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. So what is Romans saying? Theologically speaking, this is called the recapitulation theory of the atonement. Bit of a big word, but it simply means that through the atonement, through the saving work of Jesus on the cross, humans can return to being fully human. That's what it says. Because what sin does, it makes us less human. Yeah. What vice does, it makes us less human. Has anybody read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis? Doesn't talk about divorce. He talks about heaven and hell. And he imagines an imaginary voyage in a bus from the periphery of hell to the periphery of heaven. And what characterizes hell is that everything is unsubstantial. There are no colors, everything's gray, you can't really touch things. It's really nothingness. And the closer you get to heaven, the more things become real. They become hard. Colors appear. Sounds come when there's nothing. And in this really poetic way, C.S. Lewis depicts that as we move more into sin and vice, we become less and less real. We become less and less human. And as we become closer to a life of virtue and character, we become more human. That is the theory of the recapitulation. The rereading of Romans suggests that the effects of the atonement are not just to save us from eternal damnation, but they are also to reset humanity as it was intended to be. If the fall makes us lose virtue, Christ's work makes it possible again to restore the image of God, to empower us to be flourishing humans, the glory. This model is not as other models of the atonement, but it enriches our understanding of salvation. It's about our current condition, not just about future salvation. Romans 6 is a central text because it speaks of slavery to sin, of being ruled by impurity, but it also speaks of a condition of impotence, where you could do nothing. Without Jesus, when sin knocked on your door and said, now you need to sin, you could say nothing but, yes, sir. And then the power of the gospel comes along, and you are free from the captivity of sin. And now sin comes knocking on your door, and you have the power to say no. You have the power to not give your members as instruments to unrighteousness. You can say no to sin. And the misery that Paul expresses in Romans 7, where he hates himself for not being as good as he wanted to do and for doing the evil he did not want to do, I believe that is Paul talking about his condition before he met Jesus. He was like the philosophers he'd studied. He wanted to be virtuous, but he couldn't until he met Jesus on the Damascus Road. And then he explodes in Romans chapter 8 saying, but thanks be to God that I am now delivered from sin and I can be the kind of man I've always wanted to be. I can look at myself in the mirror, and because of Jesus, I can actually like what I see. Because he is changing me. He's giving me the power to be a man of virtue. With the gospel of atonement, Paul claims we are free from sin. It is no longer a master. We have become slaves of righteousness. The benefit of this new freedom is holiness and the possibility to reach the standards of character and virtue described in Romans. Because if you read the rest of Romans from chapter 12 to 16, it's a list of virtues, a list of things that we need to be as a Christian community. And you can't do that if you don't have the power of the gospel that has set you free. Because of the work of the atonement, our living sacrifice becomes a possibility. We can say no to sin. We can live a new life of righteousness. We can choose not to obey the desires of sin and offer ourselves as instruments to righteousness. Although sin is still a choice, it's possible, and we're admonished not to offer ourselves to it, we can now win that struggle. This is a gospel of transformation, not just of forgiveness. This is a gospel of freedom from the present condemnation, and not just a gospel of hope for the future. It is a gospel of getting the kingdom back into humanity, and not just getting humanity into the kingdom. It is a gospel of anthropological hope for humans, not just of eschatological hope for the future. It is a gospel of hard work, but also a gospel of supernatural help. It is a gospel where we not only look to Jesus as a good example to imitate, but as the one who accomplishes our redemption. It is a gospel where goodness is actually fulfilled and not only imputed. In brief, a gospel of being restored to the image of God, of becoming humans again in our character and virtue. Now, that is a gospel I can get excited about preaching. That is a gospel that if we live it in our communities, the world is going to see that is exclusive. That is different. These are the lights that the magicians cannot reproduce. This is our impact in society to the glory of God. So we conclude where we started. Hopefully, you've gained some boldness as a result of our talks together. Hopefully, you've gained some vision for yourselves as a result of our talks together. Let His glory be seen. Let His glory be seen through proclamation of what is in the lost suitcase of memory. Let's pull it back out. Give it new life. Let His glory be seen through the reappropriation of the genre of cultural engagement that we spoke about yesterday, and a broader Missio Dei. Let His glory be seen through a personal commitment as a mission, as a network of churches, as families, as individuals, to embark in the rediscovery of the tradition and practices of character and virtue. This is my message for you in these days. This is my prayer for you, my prayer for myself, my prayer for our families, for our churches, that God may bless us and may make us a blessing to the world.